Hello and welcome to Low Season Traveller. I am so excited to welcome Warren back to the podcast today. I'm Anna Morrison and we're going to be talking all about safaris in the south of Africa. Honestly, I'm a bit soppy, but this podcast brings me to tears every time I re-listen to it, so I really hope it touches a chord with you. It's such an honest chat, and I know what you're going to say, it's longer than all the other ones, but it's a conversation that needs to be had, and therefore I thought it was worth the extra couple of minutes. So stick it out because you will not regret it. Warren is a safari tour guide and hosts tours across the whole of Africa, so is the perfect person to have this conversation. If you're a seasoned safari goer or you've never been before and are looking for something on a lower budget, we really do cover it all. So sit back, relax, put headphones in, do whatever you've got to do to get in the zone, and let us take you to the savannah. Hi Warren, thank you so much for coming back to Low Season Traveller podcast. Today we're talking all about ethical safaris and sustainable travel. So we're going to do exactly the same as we did before. We are going to set the scene, but this time we are on safari. So can you tell me what the landscape's like, what you can hear, what you can smell? Just give it all to me, paint a picture.
Hey Anna, thanks man, it's good to be back. Yeah, being on safari, it's trying to describe it to someone. It's not easy. It's just think of fresh air, think of clean smells, think of a bit of dust. Typically you've got these, what we call these savanna trees, these acacia trees that are around, and grasslands, mountains, thickets. It also depends on where you are in Africa. From a safari perspective, Africa is huge, and it's got a massive diversity of landscapes. So just anywhere where you literally feel like you don't have a single person around you for miles. And it's silent, it's quiet. And when I say that, it's so loud, it's quiet. And that's how I would explain sort of describing a landscape and a safari landscape. You're just listening to your own thoughts in a way.
Yeah, I kind of get the idea that you're standing there and it's something bigger than yourself. It encompasses you. You're just this tiny speck in a massive landscape, and that must be quite grounding.
You hit the nail on the head, really. I think it puts you into place of where you fit into on this planet. And I think that's one of the most important things for me. And, it brings people down to earth and go, you know what, I'm not this big CEO or chairman of a Fortune 500 company or whatever it is. I'm actually this big, and I'm humbled, and I'm humbled every time I go into this environment. And that's what I love about it. It makes it real. It really does.
Yeah. Incredible. And I think everybody needs a bit of that, don't you? You need to be reminded of your place within this world. And that all comes into sustainable travel. It's about respecting what's around us and going, no, we're not the only ones to inhabit this planet, and we need to respect it, don't we?
Absolutely, and I sort of step on toes a lot of the time, because you get two groups of people, and it's sort of those that sort of will see human beings as being part of the animal kingdom and that get it, and then those that sort of think that human beings are completely separate from the animal kingdom, and that's the problem. That's where we sort of have to try and fix. And you just realize that we are part of this world and this planet, and we all have to work together, and we all have to sort of, not just we as people, but we as species and animals and plants and everything that's around us.
Absolutely. So am I right in saying that you're a guide? You take people on tours around certain safaris. Can you tell me what your most memorable experience is, be that good or bad? What is your standout story or standout experience?
So I'm for better use of a word, a safari guide. I lead safaris all over Africa, and actually also out of Africa. I've taken sort of wilderness trips around the world. Anything where nature is involved, that's me to a T. Sort of that's where I'm sort of happiest. You've probably asked the hardest question of them all. What's the most memorable experience?
I know, it's a bit mean.
It is really difficult. It really is. I've been so privileged and blessed to see what I've seen and experience what I've seen. And, I think about the animals that I've seen and the experiences, and I go from finding almost sort of less than a week old leopard cubs to watching animals being born, to watching animals being killed, the hunt. But also to seeing people's reactions on safari. And to me, that's probably what I probably get more out of, is watching people, how they react to what they're seeing and what they're experiencing. I probably one thing that always comes to mind, one of the best highlights for me was watching it, or had a gentleman that was with me, and he lived in New York City his entire life. He was, I think, in his mid to late 30s, if I remember correctly. But we stopped one evening, and this was his first time on safari. We stopped one evening on an elevated area, and I switched off the lights to the vehicle, and I switched off everything, and I just said, "Look up." And we all looked up at the sky, and it was one of those evenings where there was no moon. It was just incredible from a star and looking at the Milky Way perspective. And we just sat there in silence, and next minute I heard this gentleman behind me crying, and he was literally in tears. And I turned to him, I said, "Look, are you okay? Something happened?" He says, "It's the first time I've seen this. This is the first time I've seen stars like this. And I'm crying because, one, I'm happy, and I'm sad that I haven't seen this before in my life." That hit me so much. And I mean, it taught me not to take anything for granted when I'm out there. So, just that would probably be one of the highlights of it, as not just the animals, but just the people that I've spent time with.
Yeah, that takes you right back to what you said at the beginning. It reminds you how small you are in this big world. And I think that's something I hadn't even considered, is the fact that you guys will have very little light pollution. So the stars must be absolutely phenomenal. Exactly. On the flip side, so you said that you'd seen animals being killed, and not to take it down a really sad route, but you pride yourself on animal conservation and, protecting the environment that you work in. Can you pinpoint a moment where you thought, right, I need to do something to help this, or this is something I feel really passionately about? Was there a turning moment in your life?
Yeah, I think the moment that sort of really hit me hard, and it was a pretty terrible day. I was managing and guiding a camp up in East Africa, and next minute I got a radio call from one of the guides that was from our camp, and he said, "Listen, I've got a lioness that's trapped in a snare." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to come out and see what I can do. Let's try and phone the anti-poaching or the veterinary services, etc., etc." And I went out that day, and we had two lionesses, one young female and one young male. Two lionesses, one young female, one young male, that were caught in a basically a massive big snare. One was caught around the neck, one was caught around under the arms. And obviously, the more they fought, the tighter these snares got. And unfortunately, we weren't able to save the one that had the snare around the neck. We managed to save the other one. We got a vet in. But once that had all calmed down, I walked around that entire area, and it was probably the size of a football field or football pitch. And I picked up something like, I think, 48 different snares that were just placed all around that area. And this was pretty close to the camp that I was working at. And I was like, crikey, if this is so close to this area here, and this is quite a large issue, and that just hit me in the stomach with regards to how many animals are losing their lives due to, you get subsistence poaching, but subsistence poaching is, I can sort of understand it because people want to feed, but it's not focused on one specific animal. So any animal that walks through that snare will get caught, like these lions did. These people aren't going to eat the lions. Yeah. And I just thought that was probably the biggest moment when I realized, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of education that needs to be put out there. Yeah. And a lot of work to protecting these areas because, animal numbers are declining rapidly as we speak.
Yeah, well, that leads me nicely on to my next point. So with ethical tourism, the power kind of lies with the consumer. Where you put your money matters. And I think that you could argue that matters even more so with safaris. So how can our listeners and anybody wanting to travel to the destination make sure that they're investing in an ethical practice, something that they know is going to be serving the wildlife rather than doing the opposite?
I think do their research and ask the experts. And if they don't know who the experts are, do some more research. Because they have to ask questions. To me, it's, if something doesn't sit right with you here, and everyone on this planet, every human being on this planet will know if something doesn't really feel right. It's just not sitting right in your gut. Speak up, ask about it. These organizations, they need to be transparent, and if they're not transparent about what they're doing, and particularly their financial records, that's when I start asking questions.
Okay, so people need to be quite bold, and you just listen to their guts and go and ask all the relevant questions.
Absolutely, and it's exactly the same thing. And I might be digressing a bit here, but when you're on safari, for example, and you're with a guide, and this might be your first time that you're on safari, and suddenly the guide's doing something, or if something's not right here, and you go, hang on, whoa, people are too scared to speak up about it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to insult the guide or the driver. They don't want to cause a ruffle. And one of my biggest pet hates are when these guides get the cheetah, primarily cheetah, to jump onto the vehicle. Wild cheetah, come and jump onto the vehicle. You have this close interaction, and this is a wild animal. I think we need more people like that in the world to say, listen, no, don't do it.
I mean, it takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? Because like you said, you don't want to be disrespectful, but actually getting animals to come and stand on vehicles or interact with you. I think one of the biggest things that I learned through researching this is that you don't want to leave a trace. It's almost as you want it to be as if you've never been there.
There's two words that I always live and work with and live by. That's sensitivity and neutrality. So be sensitive and stay neutral the whole time. And if you are living by those two words and operating by those two words, there shouldn't be any issues at all.
Okay. So safari generally tends to be quite expensive. And from what I've read, some of the higher priced safaris are the more ethical, sustainable ones. Do you know of any options for people that have a lower budget but still want to stick to those ethical guidelines?
Yeah, it's a difficult one as well, because I don't know the entire industry, and particularly that side of the industry really well, I'll be honest with you. I know a few training companies that train guides that do offer experiences for foreigners to come and experience what it's like to be a guide, and to train them up from a conservation perspective. And I would look probably into that more than anything else. It's very hard, because obviously the lower budget places are trying to turn over as many people as they can to sort of try and make any form of profit. But yeah, safaris in Africa, it typically is more on the expensive side, and the money has to go somewhere. And the budget operators are, I would say, what they're putting towards conservation is very little, if not anything, because obviously they're trying to look after themselves and keep themselves right. So it's a difficult one. It really is on it. I just wondered if there were any obvious options in case people wanted. There are a few, and I would say, get in touch with me, or just once again do your research. But there's a few places that I know that would offer it, but it's more from a training perspective, but not just sense that you're going to come and have to train, but you can do, if you want to come for a week, you can come for a week and sleep in a tent, and you can learn conservation, and you can help with certain things. But yeah, there's not much of that around.
And just to give our listeners some sort of idea, how much of a problem is poaching at the moment? How much of a prevalent issue is it?
It's big.
Yeah.
It's sadly, there's no sort of gentle way around this. It's big, it's horrible. It's during COVID as well, and during the lockdowns, certain places have actually seen a reduction, funny enough, because of the strict lockdowns that they've imposed, where no one's allowed to move around and walk around and get out. But there are other areas that have increased, and people have taken the chance to get out there when there haven't been any tourists driving around. And it's sadly, it has increased. But generally speaking, poaching of rhino, elephant, lion, pangolin, which is the most trafficked animal in the world, it's big. There's a lot of it going on out there, and it needs to come to education. We need to educate people and communities, and not just in Africa, but but around the world, I always say I don't blame the poachers on the ground in Africa doing the killing.
Okay.
These people have nothing in their life. They have literally nothing, and they've been told you can get so much money if you go and hunt me let's say, for example, a rhino. I mean, if I had no money and I had a family to feed and I had nothing to live with, I would probably do the same.
Yeah.
But it's the middleman and the end person that typically is where you need to focus. And that's who I'm blaming. And it's the cultures on that side of where these products are going to that's where it has to happen.
Absolutely.
It's a difficult one, really it is. And it's a conversation that we could talk for a very long time.
That's why I thought I'd mention it, because it is a difficult conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had, because people need to be made aware of it. Because I was naive. I assumed that poaching was getting better. I kind of assumed that, we're in a modern world now and it's not happening, and that's just not the case. So yeah, we do need to talk about it. And one of the things that draws me to is the fact that you're quite active on your social media, and you posted about the first ever World Safari Day. So would you be able to explain that for me and say like how that was set up and what it's doing?
I'm glad you think I'm quite sort of active, but I don't think I am.
I thought you were.
I think I need to be more, but yeah, I try and do a little bit where I can. So the World Safari Day it happened on the 25th of November this year, and it was the very first one. There was a South African operator called African Bush Camps, and I respect them a lot. I respect their founder a lot. He's done a lot to sort of help with conservation, communities, experiences, just experiencing a real safari at the end of the day, not this white fluffy towels and spas and wine cellars kind of thing safari. It highlights the purpose of conserving Africa's natural resources and the authentic wilderness areas that we have. It also highlights the economic benefits that the safari industry has brought to these communities. So, the concept, from what I understand, was inspired by just the dedication to preserve the homeland's natural resources and the interconnected factors that make a safari truly authentic and a memorable experience. Bringing together not just the wildlife, but I think this is what a lot of people forget about a safari. It's not just about the wildlife. It's about the people, it's about the culture, and it's about that experience that they have on a safari. And sadly, people have forgotten that a safari actually means, or maybe a lot of people don't know, but the safari word comes from the Swahili word meaning journey. So it's to journey, it's to go on a journey. And I think that journey is what people need to experience. It's not just we're going to go look at an animal. For me, and I'm quite sort of harsh when I say this, but if you want to just come to Africa and tick off the big five, then you rather stay at home and go to your zoo and look at your zoo animals there. A safari is a lot more than that. And if you think, I think it's something on 30 million tourists visit Africa every year for both business and leisure, but only approximately 10% of the people who travel across the world annually is what comes to Africa. So it's a really small amount. And I think just having the World Safari Day is something that we need to try and sort of make. I mean, I jumped to this as quickly as I could when I saw this. I was like, this is a phenomenal idea. It's a brilliant idea. Yeah. And people just need to be made aware of it and what actually a safari is and should be about.
Yeah, so is the plan to have this day every single year from now on?
Yeah, it's from what I understand, it is, yeah. 25th of November.
That sounds really, really positive. And like you said, as people might not be aware, when you talk about local communities, it's not just referring to the wildlife, it's also about indigenous people that inhabit the surrounding area. So at Low Season Traveller, we brand ourselves on providing authentic experiences, but actually when you put that in the context of indigenous communities, that's not necessarily the best thing. So how can travellers make sure that they're being respectful of these communities and not actually invading their privacy whilst looking for the most authentic experience?
I think the easiest way is, talk to the staff at the safari camps and lodges that you're at, because these staff that are there and working there come from the local communities. I'd probably say the majority of the staff at these camps and lodges come from surrounding villages that are close by. And that to me is the best way to get to know the community, the people that are living close by. You know, sit down with the waiter, the butler, the housekeeper, whoever it might be, you know, the managers, whatever, and sit down with them and actually just have a conversation with them. You know, just talk to them and ask them, you know, about their family life. People love talking about themselves, and if you start asking them about themselves and their family, and you know, Africa, I'd say in Africa, we love talking about families, and it's always about, I have so many kids, I have so many wives, I have this, I have that, whatever it might be. People love it. And as soon as they see that you start taking an interest in them, they're just going to open up. You're not going to stop them talking. So that to me is the easiest, straightforward way and this just leads into, you know, don't go and spend 2 nights at a camp and then move on. Go and spend longer there and actually sit back and relax and enjoy and get to know the staff, because I would say the majority of people come to Africa for the wildlife, but leave wanting to come back for the people. And that's to me the best way, is spend time with the local staff on the ground.
One of the biggest things that I keep coming back to in my head is respect. So even if you listen back to the last podcast that we did, it's all about respecting the communities, the nature, the environment, the people. Everything seems to just come back to respect. Make sure that you're just doing your duty and not being rude, and taking the time to appreciate different cultures and ways of life. I think respect is the biggest thing that I'm taking away at the moment.
No, absolutely. You know, and just remember, you know, when I always say to people, you're in their space, you're in their home. You know, it's the same thing as if you're in a wilderness area and there's a lion. You're in the lion's territory. Actually, it's not yours, it's theirs. And it's the same thing when you're with people. You're in their this is their home. So, you know, give them respect, treat them with respect, read up on the customs, read up on, you know, do research. Once again, we've got all this amazing technology today and you can research, you know, learn a few basic hello, goodbye kind of in their language, because that just, it says so much. If you come there and you say, Jumbo Bwana, hug, you know, you start talking to them and it's just like, they look at you kind of like, whoa, hang on, this is phenomenal. And people just then accept you. And
it's the little things, isn't it, like that just make a world of difference.
Exactly.
Continuing along with the theme of obviously low season travel, I did wonder if safari and low season travel were compatible, because I don't know if high seasons kind of correlate with when animals are most likely to be out, or they're not, you know, when they come to the water sources or things like that. Do low season and travel and safari work together? Absolutely.
You know, to me, you can be on safari, and if I could, I'd be on safari 12 months a year. It's once again how it's sold, and this is also, it irritates me, because it kind of, you get people that will just sell it because it's easier to sell and not looking at the bigger picture and what the actual client who wants to come to travel is going to want to experience at the end of the day. You know, yes, in our safari summer season is when it's the rainy season primarily throughout Africa, and it's going to be wet, it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid. The bush is going to be spectacular green, it's going to be thick. So the chance of spotting an animal, so literally just driving around and going, oh, look, there's something lying in the grass, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because the grass is longer. But it's not impossible. And, you know, depending on where you're going and the experience you're having and the time that you want to take, if you want to go and you go, hang on, I've got 2 hours, boom, 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 you're not going to see much. But if you want to slow it down a bit and say, you know what, I trust my driver, my guide, I trust the tracker, who's typically sometimes in Southern Africa sitting on the front seat, to track these animals, you're going to see as much. You know, they don't necessarily congregate always around the waterholes. And I almost look at this as it's the over-tourism of the animal kingdom, of when there's very few sort of waterholes around you and sort of all these animals gather into this one waterhole. It's nice to see that, but it's also to me, you want to go and track an animal. You want to go and find that animal on your own. And you know, I've always said, you know, when everyone goes left, I go right. And I want to go find stuff on my own. And there's so much to see out there. And once again, if you're coming just to go, oh, hang on, let's tick off the big five. Yeah, it's maybe not for you. You know, if you want to come and experience a wilderness wildlife experience where there's all the animals, the insects, the birds, the reptiles, everything that's out there, the trees. I mean, it's just spectacular. And summer, our low season here, which it's when all the best birds come. I mean, all the birds that do migrate come back, and in our summer. And so you have this spectacular smorgasbord of stunning birds to look at. So there's a lot out there.
Well, we like to think here at Low Season Travel that all the people that are part of this initiative do move left when everybody moves right. This is the whole point of it. So you're not alone in that one. Finally, do you have any more tips or advice for listeners so that they can make sure that they're part of the solution on this and not part of the problem?
I think do research, do your research. Don't just listen to either what a friend has told you about all the time, or if they have, do a bit of research into it. Use common sense at the end of the day, and speak to the experts. There's a lot of experts around the world that understand Africa really well, and just slow down. I think that's the biggest thing is slow down. I remember when I got into the industry, it was, I think your average night stay was 2 nights in a camp before you moved to another one. And now it's gone to more sort of 4 nights. And to me, I'm always like, if you can spend maybe 4, 5, 6 nights in one camp and just relax, you don't have to go on every safari drive. You can enjoy your room, enjoy the camp, and enjoy just being part of that environment and just slow down.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, and I think, if anything, COVID's taught a lot of people to do that. It's taught people to take a step back, chill out, enjoy the now, enjoy the moment. So if we can all take that mindset to safari, then we'll be on for a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic, Warren. I've really, really enjoyed today's chat. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Anna. It's been great.
As always, I will leave all the information mentioned in today's podcast on our website, which is www.lowseasontraveller.com. That will also include an email address where you can contact Warren and inquire about any of the things mentioned in the podcast. Things have stuck with me ever since we did the recording, like seeing the stars for the first time and being reminded of your place on this planet, and they're things I aspire to see and experience. The wanderlust is real right now, so if you're feeling the same as me, please like, subscribe, follow the podcast, and remember, here at Low Season Traveller, travel is better without the crowds.